Kaiser Sose. That's all you can think. I mean, we were horrified at the very mention of the name Sergei Bobrovsky not that long ago. As recently as a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned Bobrovsky around town to anybody, some old lady that's all stooped over in the 10 items or less line with 38 items in a shopping cart. And you would say to her, hey, listen, lady, what are you, Sergei Bobrovsky? And she would say, don't call me that. That's disgusting. You could get arrested for mentioning the man's name here in town. Dale Talon, very shaky. That's what he'd been always going to be remembered for. Huh? Dale Talon. He signed Sergei Bobrovsky $10 million a year, 7 years. We're 4 years into it. We still owed a cat $30 million, and he was worthless. I love these kind of sports stories. And good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Defo and 5 here on 5 Reasons Sports Network, which has to be smoking hot right now. Does it not? How about this scoop Skolnick? At a time where the newspapers no longer send beat writers to cover, well, they have the Heat covered, but no longer a beat writer, Sun Sentinel, no longer sending a guy out on a regular basis to cover the Florida Panthers, who are coming off a President's Cup year and a second-round appearance in the postseason last year. And so what do? They decide, not important enough to even talk about. And for most of the season, it seemed like they were almost justified. Right? Now, what was the point in sending a guy to Winnipeg, cover a stupid 3-0 loss with Bobrovsky giving up 3 cheap goals in the first period, being replaced by some scrub, and then it turned out that the guys that they had that were in behind him were a little bit on the shaky side also, huh? Spencer Knight, what happened to that guy, man? You never hear his name mentioned. He's out of here, man. He may as well be Gladys Knight. And Alex Lyon, does he even travel with the team on the road anymore after that Dr. Strangelove stuff that he did early in the postseason? They brought in Bobrovsky. Lubie, how are you, by the way? I mean, you have to be euphoric. Can you smell it? Jim Sarney's asking me if I can smell a Stanley Cup.
I don't know.
That had to be the furthest consideration from anybody's mind as the season was winding down, that the Panthers were possibly going to win a Stanley Cup, which they have a very realistic chance of doing right now. But anyway, Bobrovsky, brilliant again last night. And these were point-blank range shots that he was stopping. 32 saves in the game. That doesn't tell the story. This Sebastian Aho literally had him, as if he was his own personal firing squad victim, and couldn't get the puck by him. He did have one clank off the post early in the game. Panthers win it 1-0. All of a sudden, the French Joe Philbin, Paul Maurice is looking like a genius. And I feel some pain for Rob Brindamore, the coach of the Carolina Hurricanes. Man, could you lose 3 more gut-wrenching games than this guy has in the series so far? But guess what? It's our team that's on top. 3-0. Couldn't be any more enthusiastic about it. Has it ever happened before, Lubie, that a team up 3-0 in the NHL? In the NHL, you have to figure even the most bizarre of circumstances has at some point unfolded and been met. But it has happened 4 times previously in playoff history. This would be the 5th time a team had a 3-0 lead if the Panthers somehow managed to bungle this. But that's hard to foresee at this point, is it not? Games have been dead even. I mean, you can't really separate these two teams by much, and you could talk about officiating and this, that, the other thing. The goalies have been pretty much brilliant for both teams, although the Panthers didn't muster up too much last night. For the large part of the game, they were outplayed by the Carolina Hurricanes, and you could make that case that in the other 2 games played in Carolina, there were large portions of those games where Carolina was badly outplaying the Florida Panthers, including the beginning of that second game where they outshot them 16-1 to open up the contest, and then ended up losing in overtime to Matt Tkachuk and his overtime goals. 2 of those in Carolina, and now Sam Reinhart about midway through the second period, and whoosh, that was it, man. Turn the lights out. We're going home, and the Panthers are up 3-0. What would you think about this game last night? And how much can we apologize to Sergei Bobrovsky? What can we do? Even if they blew the playoff series now and didn't even make it a Stanley Cup final, you would have to say Bobrovsky, just an amazing run by a goaltender or any single player here in South Florida sports history. Incredible run that he's been on.
I mean, he came in a little shaky, but last round versus the Maple Leafs, he was really strong. They were calling him great. I don't know. He gave up a few goals that I didn't understand, but he did enough. And it's a playoffs. They're giving up 2-3 goals. They're happy with it. This round, he has been out of this world. Last night was the night where it was like, okay, just get me a goal. And they got him a goal, and he did the rest. It was amazing. He was getting barrage. They almost were 2-1 in shots. The Panthers had some spurts that were like, oh man, they almost had it. They were really close. But most of the game was lived in the Panthers' end of the ice. And
Yes.
the Hurricanes did their job. They were putting it on the net. And
Bobrovsky was insane. I mean, once again, these numbers. I'm not an analytics guy, but you can analyze these and you can see what's happening here. Panthers now in Bobrovsky's last 11 appearances are 10-1, which is the last 11 games. 10-1. He has a 958 save percentage, which normally if you see a guy around 930, that's pretty good. 958 save percentage. And he has been just unbelievable with 261 minutes and 38 seconds so far in the series. No team has led by more than one goal. So he's doing this under immense pressure also. It's not like, he's got a 5-2 lead and he can kind of take it easy a little bit and relax and just concentrate. 109 of the last 111 shots he's faced, he stopped. 109 of 111. That's an amazing run by Sergei Bobrovsky, who you would have a tough time right now naming the MVP. You would have to say Bobrovsky of the series through 3 games, although Matt Tkachuk with 2 overtime winners and an assist on the game winner last night, worthy of consideration. But incredible run. Jeff Conine, they whipped him out before the game there to beat the drum and get everything going. And all of a sudden, South Florida is rallying behind not just one team, but 2, as we have the Heat in a position tonight to close out their series against the Boston Celtics. And I think in this case, they're putting the Celtics out of their misery. That seems like it was inconceivable. If you think back to the beginning of the series, even after the Heat won game number 1, you thought, all right, the Celtics will bounce back, win game number 2. Maybe they split in Miami, and this thing boils down to a 7-game series. That has been anything but the case, as the Heat managed to win game 2. Had the the Celtics scratching their head. You thought the Celtics, everybody in the world thought the Celtics would rally and muster up a big ball game, probably win game 3. They were favored in that game by 4.5 points. The odds makers certainly felt that the Celtics were going to get it together, and this was somewhat of an illusion, I guess, with both teams. Is it? Are we dreaming, Louis? Did I die and end up in an afterlife here? What's going on? South Florida teams prospering in winter sports, both at the same time, both with 3-0 leads now, and a chance to go to the championship round. The Heat would face the Denver Nuggets. No small assignment. The Nuggets managed to sweep the Los Angeles Lakers with a win last night. They came from the dead. They were down 15 at halftime. I kind of turned away from that, put on the Panther game, and I have to admit, I fell out during the third period of the Panther game last night. I finally was out of gas from sports viewing. And then, you see this third period total where Denver outscores the Lakers 36-16 in the third period on the road. Unbelievable. They're good. That's not going to be easy for the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are going to have to do everything they're doing in this Boston series and then some to beat the Denver Nuggets, especially with Denver holding the home court advantage. And having to play those games in the rarefied air of the Mile High City. Not going to be easy, but we'll see what happens. Is there any reservation on your part about either of these teams emerging from these championship series, Mike Lubie, these conference title series, with a victory? Is there any reservation on your part that these teams could possibly blow a 3-0 lead? Seems impossible, doesn't it? It's now 150-0 in the NBA. That teams up 3-0 have won the series. 150-0.
I mean, they should be fine. I don't know. You never know. I try to just focus on the series at hand. People are already starting to look ahead.
One game at a time, you're going to give me, right?
That's
One game at a time.
I don't know. You never know. The Celtics did come into the series as the favorite. It was a little ridiculous.
What's going to wake them up, though, from last game to this one? I mean, how can they turn that around?
You don't want to get
not going to be easy.
And then you go home, and then you have the home. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what we've seen, Heat are getting stronger and they're getting weaker. But again, this is a team that has been in multiple conference finals over the last 6 years. Like they've been to a few, and last year the Warriors were clearly the better team, and they still went to 6 games. So to see them go out this way is weird. I know it's a new coach and everyone's blaming Missoula. I don't think it has anything to do with Missoula. I think they're not as good as they thought they were, and I think the Heat are better than they thought they were, which is so weird to think that in the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals, a team could take a team lightly, but it's 100% with even their comments now when they were trying to give the Heat respect yesterday. They were saying the dumbest shit. Oh, well, we really should have been able to control them. We haven't, so good for them. It's like, no, you shouldn't.
No, they seem
boy.
dysfunctional at this point and resigned to the idea of losing, much more so than you get the feeling that they're going to rally around each other and find a way to win this game. And, you always look at it. It is true. I mean, all games are pivotal in the postseason, as we've been saying forever, even though people like to point to game 3, game 5. Let's face it, this is obviously pivotal. You either win or you're out. If you're the Boston Celtics. And if you do win the one on the road, you got a decent chance of going back home and making it 3-2. Then just like in the Knicks series, it's kind of a one-game roll of the dice. And there's no guarantee that the team that's gathering momentum isn't going to prevail in that game. It is possible. It seems like the 3-0 lead should not be overwhelmingly insurmountable, especially in this hockey series where each game has been decided by the most minute of differentials, including last night with 17 shots. One of them goes in, Sam Reinhart. And literally, I mean, you would have to say there was potential easily for 5 goals to be scored by the Carolina Hurricanes in that game. Easily could have been 5-1 Hurricanes, just as easily as it was 1-0, except for the human brick wall, Sergei Bobrovsky, Kaiser Sose. Unbelievable. That name literally was just uttered in total and complete horror in the past. So great stories on both fronts. LeBron James hinting at retirement after the not uncommon, kind of like a boxer loses and says, I got to think out what I'm going to do here. Telling Jim Gray, I'm thinking about hanging it up, as Gray revels in the fact that the guy's got 2 black eyes and is trying to make a decision on the fly here about his career while seeing butterflies still from being hammered in the 12th round. Was this premature evaluation aftermath of just a bitter loss there by LeBron James, who was brilliant this season? I mean, if this was his rookie year, you would have thought, wow, this guy will already name him the greatest player of all time. And this was his 20th year at 38 years old, and he was statistically phenomenal. And every bit of that in terms of the intangible presence and positive elements that he brings to a team. Couldn't do it at 31 points in the first half last night, 40 for the game as the Lakers go out. Some would say, hey, and I was taking some flack from our good friend Mike Mayo over the, don't sleep on the Lakers and they get swept.
That's the conference finals.
They get to the conference finals. That's no shame. There's no disgrace there. That is worthy of especially after starting out 2-10, and everybody was ragging on them, saying that they're a completely flawed team. They have Anthony Davis and LeBron, and aging LeBron, and that's it. They did establish that they were a force to be reckoned with. And Denver's just a great team. I mean, they're excellent, and they happen to be on fire right now and clicking on all cylinders. I mean, everything that Denver would want to see happen on the floor is essentially happening. Jokic has been brilliant, had 30 points in a game last night, and yet he's one of these guys that's now getting like a quiet 30, Lubie, if that's possible. Jamal Murray has been just razor sharp in the postseason, and especially in that series against the Lakers. And the supporting cast there of Gordon and Porter and company and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope been doing their job as well. They don't go that deep, I guess. I thought they had a deeper roster, the Denver Nuggets, but they do spread it around. I think they only had 2 other guys score in a game last night, one of which was Bruce Brown, who's been really good off the bench. But would be a tall assignment for the Miami Heat if they can survive the Celtics. What are you expecting tonight, Mike Lubie Lewitz? I mean, you would think that the Celtics at least make it a close game, and it comes down to the wire and maybe a couple of shots, in the final few minutes. Or do we see more of the same, where the Heat kind of, like they did in Game 3, have their way with the Celtics as they have at different times, especially in the second half of games that they played in Boston? It's been a pretty dominant performance by the Miami Heat, you would have to say.
I mean, I think you're going to see the Celtics be more aggressive. I think they've fallen in love with this 3-pointer. I don't know if it's they were already good at threes, so that's why they keep shooting threes, or it's become some narrative. But they shot a lot of threes, and they're not hitting them. And much like the Heat were doing, and like I said, look, if you're not hitting the three, you got to get aggressive. I presume to see a much more aggressive Celtics. I don't know if that's going to be better for them because the Heat are good at defending that. Like, so with Jimmy Butler, with a Bam, the Heat actually can defend interior or on the perimeter, but you can't just sit there and jack up threes when you're not hitting them. I mean, they're not even close. They played the Heat. Literally, it was a 15 to 20 point lead, and it might have stayed around there. And then they're like, "Yeah, we're just gonna waste possessions and throw threes up there, and let the Heat just go score easily." It's like, okay, so I don't know if they're gonna keep doing that. And it feels like they've tried things. It's not like he literally took out Robert Williams for no reason because they were getting off to good starts because of Robert Williams. So he made a weird roster move, and that literally is sort of what started them off on the downfall.
Yeah.
Right.
It's easy to look lost coaching against Spoelstra, I guess. But Missoula does look a little lost. Now, a coach isn't going to look good when his team is just hoisting bricks up there and trailing badly from almost the outset of the game. Sloppy turnovers, falling all over the court, just leaving the ball out there for the Heat to begin a fast break. They offer no resistance whatsoever in transition. It's easy for a coach to look bad, but you wouldn't necessarily expect that Missoula, would come up with a game plan tonight that works, would you? I mean, if the Heat, continue to shoot like they are, they're even going to be a threat against Denver. But we shall see how that
Yeah,
ends up. But I don't know. I'm expecting the Heat to handle the Celtics tonight for the first time. First time, I believe, in the entire postseason. I think the Heat are favored. They might have been favored in that Knicks
one game
series
versus the Knicks.
in
There was
one
a game
game. Yeah.
versus the Knicks. Yes, there's a game versus the Knicks. When they came back home, I think they were favored game two. One of the games,
They should have been favored at least in one of those games, the way that series was going.
Yeah.
I know they were underdogs in all of the road games against the New York Knicks, and they've been the underdog in every game, heavily so, in all of these games against the Celtics, except for tonight when all of a sudden the odds makers are giving you 2.5 with the Celtics tonight. That there'll still be people that believe the Celtics. I don't know. After that last game, it's hard to envision the Celtics winning anything. It just is. They look like they didn't even belong in the postseason in that ball game, and I'm wondering what in 48 hours could turn that around.
Pride. Maybe they have some kind of a pride, and it's like, are we really gonna get swept? Like, that's what's crazy. The Lakers were controlling that game. I was watching the Panther game, had the Laker game on, but I wasn't paying attention to it. And I was just like, let me glance. The Lakers are controlling it. I'm sure the Nuggets will hang around. But
I thought sure the Lakers had won that game. I turned it off at halftime and didn't get back to it.
They didn't get any help. I mean, LeBron was great for a half, and then the second half he ran out of gas. And Davis was good, but not great. And he literally only had one great game the entire 4 games. Every other game was average. And none of their cast. Like, that's what people kept counting. Like, you're counting on Rui Hachimura to put up 20 and a half. Like, come on, guys. Austin Reeves, who's a lot better than I thought, than anyone would ever think.
And Schroeder.
Fucking Reeves. Like, they're counting on these guys that are randoms to keep playing. Like, that's the thing. The Heat are counting on 2 of the 4. They're not counting on all 4 every game. Now, sometimes they get all 4, but they don't need all 4 every game. They just need 2. The Lakers were counting on all 4 of those. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Rui Hachimura and Russell and Reeves to all play well every game. You can't count on that. Like whatever we say about Bam, he's been a major defensive force, and he's early getting involved on offense to set a tone. Jimmy Butler, if you really need him, he's there. Anthony Davis is so freaking weird. Like, the dude
up and down,
in a loss, and then was the rest of the series. It's like, okay, you're the young star on this team, Anthony. Like,
you would have thought that he would have been more imposing of a force, that was a big heads up duel that he had going against Nikola Jokic. Although they didn't even have him on Jokic all of the time, they had to go to Hashimura, who it was real good. I mean, a great pickup. This Pelinka came up big, at the trade deadline and actually reshaped the Lakers a little bit. But are you buying at all LeBron James' retirement rhetoric? Or was that just after bitter loss? I mean, he didn't throw the jersey in the garbage can. He has $50 million in salary waiting for him next year if he plays for the Lakers. his stated desire to play with his son Bronny, who I don't know how far away he is from being an NBA player, but I'm not sure that he's on the cusp of being one after 1 year at USC, where he's going to enroll. Yeah, does he stick around? For some reason, I feel like he's going to come back. I have no idea. I mean, obviously, I have no insight into it. 20 years would cap a great career, would it not? I mean, if he went out now, LeBron James goes out somewhat on top and still very much worthy and in my opinion deserving of consideration as the best guy that ever suited up in NBA history. As an all-around player, I think LeBron James was the best player that ever played the game. You can make a case for a lot of guys. Obviously, Michael, two more rings don't make that much of a difference to me. Robert Horry has more rings than Michael Jordan. John Sally has almost as many rings as Michael Jordan. So to use that as the sole consideration, I think is ridiculous. We always, reference the Schmanks, nondescript Chuck Nevitt types that have championship rings, while Dan Marino doesn't. I always hated that argument about Marino. Boy, I would just bristle every time somebody, well, he don't have a ring. How can he be the greatest? I mean, it's insane when you consider some of the quarterbacks that won championship rings, including Chad Henne has a championship ring, for God's sake. So to use that as a measuring stick is ridiculous. Overall body of work, I would say LeBron James probably the best of all time. Highest scorer in NBA history, exceeding Kareem. Kareem wasn't as impactful in all ways as LeBron James is, in spite of the devastating nature of the sky hook and its unstoppable makeup where nobody could keep this guy from scoring. What wasn't as strong of a rebounder as you would like to see from a guy that size, but there certainly was no slouch in that category. I would say LeBron James, if he retired right now, gets my vote. Greatest basketball player of all time. Greatest, Lubie. I was a big Magic Johnson fan, but his shot wasn't as smooth as LeBron James was over time. And I don't think he was
Defensively, he was in.
as impactful, yeah, even though he was brilliant. All right, that's going to do it for Defo and 5. Good luck to the Heat tonight. Let's hope it's closeout city tonight and tomorrow. Very exciting times here to be a South Florida sports fan. This is not a time to, bury your face in your hands and go, I can't believe it. I root for these stinking, lousy teams. They suck.
Yeah.
None of that, people. Let's be positive and go out there and maybe take down one and possibly two championships. That would be unbelievable. A lot of fun being with you this morning. We have the Defo Show coming up on South Florida Live. Subscribe there. If you're a 5 Reasons sports fan, you would definitely be a fan of our South Florida Live show, the Defo Show with Mike Lubie Lubitz. And thank you for tuning in. Another edition of Defo on 5.